Are you just chomping at the bit for more Witcher? Now that you've binged the Netflix series and all your side quests are done in games 1 through 3, I'm here to tell you where you can get your Gair-Alt Fix. I'm Kris Carr, and today I'm talking to you about the Witcher comics. Before we go adventuring with old cat eyes, I want to give a shout out to all of our sponsors on Patreon, especially our super nerd sponsor of the day, Kevin Brown. Thanks to these heroes, we get to keep the lights on and avoid getting real jobs like some trolls have suggested we embark on. How dare you? If you want to keep Whitney and I employed, why not head on over and see if a donation tier works for you? We'll thank you kindly in return. If merch is all you really want, click on that affiliate link to TeePublic in the description and buy yourself something pretty. Let's talk comics, y'all. To be clear, the comics aren't required reading to understand the series or even prep for the show if you haven't watched it yet. That being said, they definitely offer some fun flavor text and further explore the characters. And they even expand upon the game's interpretation of the world. Plus, if you're like me and you don't have time to read every single novelization, this is a fantastic alternative because they're an excellent summation of stories from both the books and video game franchise. Though the Netflix adaptation is claiming that at this point, no storylines are going to come from the comics or video games, just the books.
I will take the girl, protect her, and bring her back unharmed.
If you watched our Witcher Crash Course in History video, you already know that The Witcher first began as a series of short stories written by Polish author Andrzej Sapkowski and revolves around a Witcher named Gair-Alt. Witchers are gifted with supernatural abilities and are trained starting at a very young age to battle beasts and monsters throughout the continent. The first slew of comics were released between 1993 and 1995 in Poland. These comics were written by Maciej Porowski and illustrated by Boguslaw Polch, and were based on Sapkowski's short stories The Witcher, The Lesser Evil, The Last Wish, The Bounds of Reason, and a sixth based on an outline provided by the author himself called The Betrayal. These comics were eventually collected and placed in chronological order in 2 separate hardcover volumes in 2001. As you know from that last video, in a shocking turn of events, I don't speak Polish, y'all! If you watch this channel regularly, you know I'm struggling with basic English. Gair-Alt. It's not Gair-Alt, I'll tell you that. Gair-Alt. It seems like as good a time as any to apologize for all the bastardized Polish pronunciations I'll attempt to make in this video. My bad. I'd like to apologize to any and all Polish speakers for my abysmal slaughtering of the Polish language. Particularly Antoni Porowski. I'm so sorry. I love you. I'll make Zurich to make up for it. But some amazing folks have provided fan translations of these original comics online. Various learned folks and forums have provided fan translations to help you out, but an official translation has yet to be licensed. I'm anticipating with the show that some publisher is gonna wise up and release these bad boys in multiple languages. We'll provide you with a link to one hero's translation in the description below so you can take a gander yourself. This one is from a user named Daneel53. Okay, so the art is decidedly dated, and the panels are heavy with dialogue. But what do you expect for the first attempt at adapting 300+ page stories? Reading it, it's like a slutty version of Prince Valiant. It's weird. The most widely known and coincidentally most recent Witcher comics are those published through Dark Horse Comics. There are 4 collections, and within those stories, the timeline varies all over the established Witcher novels timelines. Dark Horse released its set of comics in 2015, following the narrative of CD Projekt's video games. The first 4 comics were written by Eisner winner Paul Tobin and illustrated by Joe Quero, and told 3 original stories, along with an adaptation of Sapkowski's Season of Storms. In 2018, Dark Horse released another 4-part comic with a new duo, Aleksandra Motejka and Mariana Stratowska. Okay, so those first few stories, I've gotta geek out over Joe's art. Comic book aficionados probably recognize the name from Hellboy, and the artwork is very much in tune with that Hellboy style. The monsters, the gore, the use of light and shadow, the moodier mutant palette, swoon. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I really enjoy the look of these panels. Oh, and before we jump into the Dark Horse stories, let's throw in a spoiler alert. I'll be devolving some plot points in these story recaps, so if you want to read them without any of the dirty details, consider this the restricted section.
Chaos is the most dangerous thing in this world. But without control, chaos will kill you.
Let's start with Witcher Volume 1. The Witcher, House of Glass is a 5-issue comic book story. Our tale begins with Gair-Alt finding a hunter named Jacob in the woods. Gair-Alt befriends him and learns that Jacob lost his wife Marta. The two get trapped with Jacob's dead wife and a succubus named Vara in the House of Glass, a creepy mansion with seemingly infinite rooms and danger lurking around every corner. We learn later that Jacob actually was incredibly abusive to his late wife Marta and killed her himself. Ghost Girl gets her revenge though, and Jacob is dragged off to his death. Volume 2 takes Gair-Alt aboard a ship filled to the brim with criminals and scoundrels. But some of these passengers are seriously dangerous, and one of them hides a terrible secret. He kidnapped an Aguera, a fox demon. This non-humanoid creature can take on the appearance of a human, though their base form is that of a fox, and they can wield powerful magic such as creating illusions and bewitching others. The term Aguera literally means fox in Guarani, a Paraguayan language. The Guarani people have a legend about the Aguera Tunpa, or fox god, who's a trickster that uses its power to cause suffering. The she-fox's mother pursues the vessel and causes all kinds of problems for our travelers. This volume is based on one of the chapters from Season of Storms, and is definitely a story I would love to see in the series. I'm a huge fan of this sort of folklore creature in French and Japanese stories, and I'm really hoping they dive further to them in the show. Volume 3 involves fellow Witcher Ciri. Witcher diehards will already know her, but just to get everyone on the same page, Ciri was acquired through the Law of Surprise. Basically a law that dictates if someone saves you, they get your firstborn child. You know, like you do. Anyway, Gair-Alt and Ciri are attacked by a monster an old enemy creates to kill them, complicating the simple rescue mission they were on. This introduces werewolf-esque creatures known as strigas. These monsters are women that have been transformed into hateful beings that will devour a man or beast without a second thought and hunt during the full moon. This is a fun one! Of course, Gair-Alt is one of the few men who have faced a striga and lived to tell the tale. We also meet a boy named Elid who can turn into a crow, who's just a sweet guy trying to live an honorable life, and then Gair-Alt's like, "F that, let's drink and look at titties!" Plus, we get a healthy dose of Yennefer, a sorceress and Gair-Alt's true love. Volume 4 is titled A Flesh and Flame, and brings fan favorite Dandelion into play. Dandelion is a poet, minstrel, and close friend of Gair-Alt. Gair-Alt works with a local woman named Radia to combat the dark forces plaguing her land. But, as always, this mystery unravels into something that's much more problematic to Gair-Alt. This should be a great story. It's a mystery that involves a concubine and a sorceress. I mean, I'm in. With A Flesh and Flame, we get a new duo at the helm, and the script feels incredibly well researched. It should be no surprise that writer Alexandra wrote the script for Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt. Having the game's scriptwriter expand upon the universe in comics is a real treat. It feels authentic and true to the game franchise. It did feel like this was the most side-questy of the comics, though. Gair-Alt has to fight cave monsters for some mushroom, he basically gets some power-ups. It's like you're grinding in the game. And that being said, it truly feels like DLC. And frankly, is the sort of storyline video game DLC should look to for guidance. Plus, the benefit of meeting Dandelion outweighs any of my issues with the story. Fun fact, Dandelion's original name in Polish was Jaskier, which literally translates to buttercup, but was changed for English because the developers thought it sounded too feminine. It was confirmed at last year's Comic-Con that Dandelion's in the series, but just under that Polish name. So rejoice, your fan favorites in the show! Now, what I'm really interested in down the line is to see if these comics influence the show in any way. After all, the comics do borrow from both the video games and the novels. Now, the showrunner has been upfront about how they intend to work with the novel as their bread and butter, their holy grail, for the entirety of the show. I do wonder if that creative team took a peep at those pages, though. Seems like a waste of some fantastic creature design. Let me know if you think we'll see any Dark Horse inspo in the show ever, or if I'm just being too hopeful. If you're interested in any of these comics, remember, you probably have a great local comic shop. By going there, you'll see all the new releases every Wednesday. If you're into weeklies, they'll have graphic novels for all you binge readers, and they'll have back issues to fill in the parts of the story you've missed. On top of that, they usually have awesome events and weekly tabletops to participate in. So going to your local brick and mortar helps you find what you love, introduces you to like-minded fans, and helps you support small business. It's a win-win. So search for a local store if you don't already have one, and be sure to grab your copies of The Witcher there. Of course, there's a lot to these stories, so I'd love to hear from you if I missed any of your favorite details regarding the comics. Do you think these storylines will play out in the series at some point? Let me know in the comments below.
I remember hearing stories about witches. Is it true what they say?
Thanks again to all of our patrons on Patreon, to TeePublic, and you guys for tuning in. If you like this video, maybe give it a like, share it, subscribe. That'd be pretty dang sweet of you. For more comic book videos, click to the left. Thanks for watching. See you, Space Cowboy. I could have just stopped there, but then I was dumb and didn't finish my sentence. All right, reading is hard.